joining me this week is an actor, martial artist, and you might have seen his work on the iconic movie, The Karate Kid. So I'm going to hit that music and get started. This week, we have the creator of the crane kick, Darryl Vidal. Darryl, yes. Thank you for coming off on such a short notice, too.
No problem.
So most people probably don't know, but you invented the crane kick, which everyone saw Daniel beat Johnny in the All Valley tournament with. How did the crane kick become about?
Okay. Long story long, right? I was originally scouted to be in the movie by the director, John Avildsen, who also is the director of Rocky. I don't know if you knew that. So they were actually going to tournaments in LA, scouting for a person who could bring some realism to their movie, The Karate Kid. And at the time, I had been a very dominant kata competitor and fighting in kumite, and so I was competing in this tournament. And after I had won the kata division, I was sitting in the line to the kumite competition, and this guy comes up to me and says, "Hey, how'd you like to be in a movie?" So it's like, of course I want to be in a movie. I'm going to be the next Bruce Lee, right? So they, without any further auditions, they invited me to come to the sound stage, and next thing I know, I'm appearing, and the kata that I was using to win to dominate a lot of tournaments had all those kicks that I do in the Karate Kid. Pretty much every one of those kicks was in this kata. So if you looked at the kata, you say, "Wow, here's a guy doing all these crazy kicks," right? So that was the original premise of having me was
all the tornado kicks.
Yeah. The original premise was basically to have me come in and compete in the tournament. And then one day during the rehearsals, they came to me and said, "Hey, look, we have this other move, the thing that we want you to do for the movie, called the crane kick." Initially, Fumio Demura, you know who he is, right? He's the guy that did the stunts for Mr. Miyagi's fight scenes. And he was supposed to do this, but he didn't feel up to it. He's a little heavier, and I don't think he was older. And so they said, "We want you to do this crane kick." So the writer Robert Mark Kamen had written about the crane kick in the script, and it basically says, one leg is standing on one leg on top of this post, and with the arms stretched out to the side. And so I said, "Well, why would you ever do that? I mean, that doesn't work for fighting." And they said, "Well, because it's the crane kick. That's how we want it." So I figured I'd better shut my mouth and do what I'm told. Otherwise I'd, get kicked off the set. So I listened to them. They said, he gets his leg hurt, so he has to be able to stand on one leg and then do this kick. And the way he had written it is, they want the kid to stand on one leg, or the old man actually, and jump and kick, and then land on the same leg. And I thought about that and actually tried it a couple of times.
Oh, that's like super hard.
Yeah, unless you're jumping, it's like almost impossible. I don't want to say it's impossible. I'm sure there's somebody that can do it, but I tried it many times. In fact, Ron Thomas, who is the other black belt, on set, he was Bobby Brown. We actually discussed it and said, "Look, here's how it's going to have to work. You're going to do one leg up, jump and kick, and then land on the first leg that we had up, and then switch back real quick." So I showed them how that looked, and they said, "Okay, that's great." And then they said, "But you got to do something with your hands." I said, "Okay, I'm going to start out like this with my hands kind of like in a Wing Chun guard. And then I'll dip down low, bring the arms out to the side, and bring them out, and then do the jump." And that's the crane kick. Just like that.
That's crazy. So I was, So Martin Cove, John Kreese, I have him on video. Actually, my good late friend, Eric, the trainer,
Oh,
was talking to John Kreese or Martin Cole about that kick. And he claims that kick was total bullshit and it was illegal. Yet that kick looked totally legit because it was a front kick to the face. And throughout that whole tournament, people were getting hit in the face the whole time. So why are people claiming that kick was illegal?
You know, it's funny that you bring that up because I think it was a mastermind move on the part of the Cobra Kai creators because it was never really talked about as illegal until Cobra Kai came out, right? And then Daniel or Johnny says, "Yeah, that was illegal," and blah blah blah, and that kind of created the whole flurry about whether or not it's illegal. But many times during the Karate Kid 1 tournament, there's hitting to the face. It is what we used to call a double jump kick. So it's something that you could do, and totally legal. Yep. Now the question could be, was it excessive? Because as you know, and when we do tournaments, if you draw blood, create a bruise, or if you snap his head back, we usually call that excessive contact, and then you either warn them or you disqualify them. So at worst case, it would have been a warning. But yeah, when they came out with this whole it's illegal thing, if you go back and watch Karate Kid 1, they say everything's legal, above the waist. But in Karate Kid 3, they come back and say no hits to the face. So I think people, combined all that together and then say, oh, it's illegal, but totally legal, I think.
Yeah. I'm going to play that video of Martin Cove discussing that crane kick on the YouTube video version of this one. So you could see him talking about it. This was just like a year and a half ago. So I'll play that for the YouTube version of it. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
3. I learned that Daniel was the real bully. It's very valid. You have to remember that nobody made a big deal of it. But the crane kick was completely, at the time, illegal.
Was it really?
There was no such thing, but no one ever brought it up. No one ever brought it up, and now people think because it's gone around the internet.
You mean this thing?
Yeah.
That was illegal.
But that was totally illegal. But that was never brought up. Now people talk about him being the real bully, because it circulated. If you break down all the things that Daniel did, he was the bully because he got in. He was a newcomer in the game,
right?
It was Johnny Lawrence's girlfriend, and all this other stuff,
right?
But the bottom line is, nobody discovered at the beginning when this movie was released that the crane kick was not a kick that was accepted.
That's amazing.
It was made up bullshit. And John Kreese knew it.
Right.
That's why for years I've always said Johnny Lawrence is the Karate Kid.
Right.
But nobody understood why.
Oh my goodness.
They understand why now because the crane kick is totally unacceptable. It has nothing to do with karate.
Well, I am so glad that Tim Flynn became a martial arts instructor so he could change people's lives.
Calling it BS, well, I would never stand in a tournament on one leg. Because if that was me fighting the guy doing the crane kick, all I do is wait for a minute. He's not going to be on his one leg very long before you bum rush him and knock him over. Pretty funny.
Oh yeah. No one just goes straight in. So I always get a kick out of the Karate Kid. How Daniel wins the tournament. Like the third one didn't make any sense to me at all. Sean Kanan was throwing a bunch of not advanced kicks, but front kicks, round kicks. And yet for the final point, he goes in for a step forward. He goes in for a step reverse punch. I'm like, I don't even teach my kids to do that. Why would you doing that? Did the kata hypnotize him so much that he forgot what to do?
That's the premise.
It's a movie,
exactly.
Whatever.
I have a great quote from the director, John Alvinson. I saw him probably less than 6 months before he passed, and we were at an event together. And I had asked him, I said, did you ever know that the Karate Kid would become as big as it was? And he goes, not in a million years. And then we were kind of talking about the 3 Karate Kids, because he directed the first 3. And he said, the Karate Kid 1 was, a great story that everybody loved. Karate Kid 2 was Karate Kid goes to Okinawa, and meets a girl, and the Karate Kid 3 was Karate Kid 1 all over again.
So, Darryl, you are a martial artist, and do you teach currently as well? When you get students or parents, when parents come to you and they tell you, I want my kid to learn martial arts because I want them not to be picked on anymore, I want them to become bully proof. What is your thought about parents thinking that martial arts is the best way for their kids not to get bullied?
Yeah,
Like, why don't they join a different
right.
sport? But why is it always martial
Well,
arts?
I mean, martial arts is oriented to self-defense, quote unquote, right? So it's supposed to be that. But I think I don't tend to have parents that say, I want to put my kid in martial arts because he's getting bullied. I more get kids, parents who just want to put their kid in martial arts just for the discipline, and maybe to learn some self-defense. But I don't necessarily see them or have them tell me that they're getting bullied. It has, I mean, but I do get a lot of parents who, after the fact, after the child has been with me for a while, talk about, how, one, they did protect themselves in an instance. They had, there was a situation, and they used their martial arts to save themselves. But I also just get a lot of compliments, and you probably do that as well as a karate instructor. Just the increase in confidence and discipline that they learn over years, about being responsible about their body and the decisions they make, and discipline of practice, and following through with things. So I don't know that I really get a lot of interactions, quote unquote, for the bullying aspect, but I have got a lot of feedback after the fact that it's made them so much more confident. And I actually have a couple of black belts, one a woman who got into a potential attack, a rape attack type of situation, and she totally defended herself. She kicked the guy in the groin, punched him in the face, and really
Oh, well.
Saved her in that situation. And for that, she thanks me, from the deepest of her heart, and so yeah, it comes about for different reasons, but I think the result is always the same: as discipline and practice, and persistence.
What advice would you have for parents if their child is being bullied?
What advice? Okay, so the first thing I would say is go ahead and enroll them in the martial arts. Get them into a class, and not really focus on the bullying aspect. Just focus it on learning what they're learning the kata, learning to spar, uh, and hopefully, and I don't like to use the word hopefully, but hopefully the kid learns the discipline and some physical self-defense techniques that will get them beyond the whole bullying thing. I mean, the best case scenario is they never get into an altercation after that, right? They just learn to deal with it, man to man, if you will, or verbally, de-escalation and avoidance. Because I think ultimately those are the type of factors that you don't get into the bullying situation. Funny thing about the Karate Kid is, I think we've all kind of joked about the fact that Daniel, kind of brings it on his own, right? He's going after Johnny's girlfriend, and
He did.
he's taunting him, and pushing, spraying water on the guy. So I don't know if that's a true bullying. I mean, they did bully him. They knock him off a hill, and he rolls down. So that is, but he had it coming to him.
Yeah. Yeah, Daniel said some things. As soon as Daniel found out that he wasn't going to get touched by Johnny and his gang because he had Miyagi behind his back and they had that tournament deal, he did a lot of shady stuff. Like he went to the bathroom on purpose, threw that hose on top of Johnny, drenched him. Like there's some stuff he could have done. He could have just left things alone and focus on the training, but he chose
That's
not
right.
to do that.
And that's what I would be talking to my students about is, don't be causing these type of issues. Now, that in the filming, there was another scene that got cut out where Daniel does something with a blueberry pie. I can't remember how it works. I think he put it in the seat and Johnny sits on it or something like that.
They showed it in Cobra
Oh,
Kai.
okay. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
That's Daniel's bullying situation.
Daniel, he did some bullying behavior in Karate Kid 1 just because he had the confidence knowing that he is not going to get touched by them. What I realized in Cobra Kai is, he kind of was the bully because he is this large auto dealership. He has multiple businesses throughout the valley. Johnny wanted to open up a small-time karate school, probably about the size of mine, and Daniel wanted to take him out. Like, why would he care about a small-time karate school, even if it was an old nemesis of his? Who cares? You're a big-time auto dealership. Why is that going to affect your life? It's kind of like Walmart taking out the little guy.
Yeah.
The little mom and pop shop in town. So looking back at the show, I find it kind of funny. Like, Daniel, you kind of are a bully too.
I think they did that on purpose.
And
because I think they drew, they wanted to create this turnabout, right? Where Johnny is now down on his luck and Daniel is the rich guy, like you said. But he's so conflicted because, he wants to be, like you say, he wants to be this powerful, person, business owner, yet he wants to, like you say, take out the little guy, and he always feels like he's right and he's got to dominate, Cobra Kai and Eagle Fang, and they're wrong and he's right. It's like, just mind your own business,
Which, in today's world, though, that's not too far off from the truth, though, too. That's how some businesses behave. It's just what they do. And even for myself, with in our industry, in the martial arts industry, sometimes you get schools who don't like each other for no reason, just because they're your competition, so-called competition, which in reality, if a martial arts school is in your town, there's 2 martial arts schools in your town, and then people think, well, that's your competition, which is not true, because the true competition, if you want to look at it from a business aspect, is whatever the school is doing for sports and activities, because that's your true competition. They're cheaper. Taxpayers are paying for part of that. You can't compete against that. I think, if kids would focus more energy in the martial arts, we'd probably have a lot better, we would have more respectful youth, and maybe the bullying situation won't be as bad as it is right now.
Right. It's interesting that you say that because there is, I live in a small town in California, Murrieta, but that's, there's 100,000 people in Murrieta, so it's not that small, but there's probably 20 karate schools in Murrieta. And now, the reason I'm different is because I teach through the Parks and Rec. That's for the past 32 years, and I always kind of harken back to the Karate Kid 1, because when Daniel says, the mom says, "You took karate," and he says, "Not at the Y." And I always feel like, I teach through the Parks and Rec. It's kind of like the Y, But because I teach through the Parks and Rec, I can kind of make friends with some of these other studios. They don't seem to be threatened by me. And for me, my program is so inexpensive because of that I tend to get, I don't want to call them the dredges. I call people who don't necessarily can't afford, $100 or plus a month to put your kid through karate, because mine is half that. So, it's kind of like, I'm kind of like an outlier, although I do, I have had, thousands and thousands of students come through my doors. It's like I said, it's Parks and Rec. So I don't tend to do anything to try to commit them beyond what their normal, their inkling. So, if someone doesn't come to class, doesn't sign up, I don't pursue them. I just kind of figured, they passed their time, and
Yeah.
So I don't have a contract or anything that try to keep them.
No, my instructor, Tom, he does Parks and Rec and he loves it. He does I think he does 5 or 10 of them around in the metro area up in Minnesota here in Minneapolis. And he loves doing it. And I thought about someday, that'd be kind of nice because when you do Parks and Rec, you don't have to worry about the overhead of your brick and mortar business. You don't have to worry about the electricity. You don't have to worry about all that stuff. You can just focus on doing what you love and teaching kids martial arts. So actually, I think, I told my friend Tom, someday it'd be kind of nice. It'd be a dream of mine to go do what you're doing. Just go around, teach 1 day a week here and there, and just be happy. It'd be great. But, I'm not saying running my business now stinks. It's fun, but to have that stress taken away from you, have that stress off of your plate and let someone else deal with it, that's even better.
I do like that aspect. But then again, I have a regular job. So, I have that on the other side of it all.
Yeah. And I don't. This is all I do. I run martial arts classes, so I teach martial arts for a living. That is my full-time job. But it'll be a good job when I'm getting close to retirement where I can't do that anymore. Like Parks and Rec would be a great place to kind of stop. Not really stop, but just have less stress in my life and just show up here and there to go teach a class. It'd be wonderful. Is there a solution to get kids to stop picking on each other? Or is there a way where we can start teaching kids respect and having them wanting to learn how to respect people?
That's
it seems like
such a good question.
Kids they don't care about it. They don't care.
I think it comes back to family because, when you have kids that come from, I don't want to, speak badly about families but I think when there's a family that has internal issues, maybe there's no father, it's a single family, then you have these kids who are looking for, they've lost their way. And so they go and they treat other people badly. I think the community in and of itself is part of it, but also, where your family is in the community. Are you part of the community? Do you participate in other things around the community? And do your parents teach you, about respect? Because if you're never taught about respect and being a good person, quote unquote, then you're never going to have it, and then you only kind of find out the tough way after you turn 20 and you realize you've been a jerk all this time. I do see that. Whereas if you start a kid out karate and they are peers among others, they have the same struggle, they're learning to achieve the same thing. So I don't even think that's just a particular martial arts thing. I think anybody who with a good coach, right, with a good trainer, leading his students to do, to pursue greatness, if you will, excellence, and giving the right leadership. But so from a society standpoint, I don't know, because you said you're at Minneapolis. I can recall, from a couple of years back where they had all those riots and all the things going. It's like, I think that's, there's something there that, that the community and society needs, but I don't know what that is though.
It's a cultural thing. I feel like, how you change that whole community to start being positive and not be negative the whole time. This whole riot situation, until a few years ago, especially during the COVID times, I never really seen a riot on TV live. Like not as extreme as I saw up in Minneapolis. Now I live in Mankato, which is about an hour south of the Twin Cities, but never saw where people were just angry, where they burned down a police station, and you have kids watching that thinking that that's okay to do. It's
Right.
crazy. Darryl, do you think society has a lot to do with bullying today? We see negative, I'm not going to get political, but kids watch the news. They see the news talking about a certain political person or whatever, and they can say bad names about that person on the news. Or they hear their parents talk about a certain race or religion, and the kids learn from that. Do you think, as a society, we just need to stop doing that?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah. I mean, parents are the front line, right? They're the ones who have the young kids, who they're bringing them up in their early ages, and kids do what they see. They follow what they're told, and if you watch a lot of news and it's all negative, or it's all leaning towards one way, and you don't learn the aspect of of harmony, community, uh, then there's no real guidance to prevent something like that from happening. So, but um, as I think the only way that we can do it is by impacting and talking to the parents, because they're the ones who are raising the kids. And again, if parents aren't there, or they're not doing their job, uh, and teaching these young people, then that's where community and society falls short. It's not a simple answer, because how do you get to all these parents, right? But that is the key. I mean, I don't think that anybody in a political forum, or you could say church, but how many people go to church anymore these days? And so it does come back to parenting,
Yeah.
and some sort of want to be good people and have a great society.
Yeah, and a lot of it, I think, too, is we need to have our kids need a little bit more structure these days than letting them come home and do what they want, especially that darn tablet that kids get to have these days. And I understand that some parents, that can be their form of a babysitter for them. Here, have your tablet, go sit on the couch and do whatever you want. And who knows what these kids are being exposed to? We got TikTok, we got all sorts of social media platforms these kids are on.
Well, as a perfect
learning these
example,
wrong behaviors.
And as a perfect example, TikTok is owned by China, right, or run by the Chinese. If you go on TikTok in China, all the TikToks are about education. They're teaching kids. It's kind of like Grammar Rock when we were little kids. But so all that weird stuff that we see on TikTok is not shown in China. They only pretty much focus on good things and learning, but at the same time, that's a totalitarian society. So we can't say we want that.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I don't know if the answer to that question is a tough one.
Darryl, any advice for kids or parents who are experiencing bullying right now? What can they do to help end it or make them feel better about themselves?
Well, I think avoidance is one aspect, one important aspect. If you can do something to avoid that situation, that's going to be the easiest. It's not necessarily the best because it doesn't end it, but if you can just avoid it, then maybe that person will lose interest and bug somebody else. But ultimately, learning to stand up for yourself, to speak for yourself, learning how not to escalate, and turn a verbal altercation and de-escalate it so it doesn't become physical. And just by being a good person, I think the bullying will eventually stop if you just stand up for yourself, but at the same time, don't try to make it a physical altercation. And that takes a lot of self control, right? So I don't know if that's the ultimate answer, but
Yeah, and a lot of courage to stand up for yourself. But I tell kids, just stand tall, make that eye contact, because kids do not like to make eye contact. But if you can do that towards your bully and stand up and speak nice, loud, and clearly,
well,
give
your
it a
advice,
shot. Is it 100% going to work?
Your advice about eye contact is very important, and it's deep. Okay, it goes beyond just learning how to make eye contact. When I have a student that's shy or kind of doesn't make eye contact, when I talk to them, I will always say, look me in the eye, and then when you're talking, when you're shaking hands with somebody, look at them in the eye, and that is kind of one of the very first levels of building confidence, is to be able to do that. Just like in the Karate Kid, always look eye. It's good advice.
Yeah. Yep. I love it. Darryl, if people want to get a hold of you or follow you, where can they do that?
Great. On Facebook, I'm on Vidal Kempo. My last name and Kempo. That's my outside persona. On Instagram, I have a really dumb one because I made it up when I first started. I didn't realize it. I was going to be stuck with it, but it's at Rockbreaker Boy, and so yeah, Vidal Kempo on Facebook, Rockbreaker Boy on Instagram.
And if you want to meet Darryl in person, or even meet plain old me, myself, we're both going to be at the Voices Heard Summit in Long Beach, California. That is on February 23rd, 24th, 25th. You can get tickets at energymagazine.com. I will put the link in the show notes for that. And Energy is spelled INNERGY, magazine.com. Darryl, I want to thank you for coming on such a short notice to be on my podcast
It's been
today.
great. Hopefully you can make this technical issue get past it, and it was a lot of fun. Thank you for having me.